6:40 in Trinidad and Tobago. Good to have you with us as we continue with our program on this Friday morning. And just to let you know, at Stumps, at the close of play on day 3 of the first test between Bangladesh and the West Indies in Chattogram, Bangladesh in their second innings, 47 for 3. That's an overall lead of 218. 47 for 3, an overall lead of 218 going into day 4, which will be 11:30 tonight our time. All right, what more can we do? It seems to be the question in the mind of many when it comes to keeping our women and girls safe. Daily, we are forced to confront what appears to be a habitual problem of crime and violence in our society, with very little hope of a turnaround anytime soon. As reported in the news yesterday, the body of the young woman, Andrea Barrett, was found off a precipice along Aripo Road after she went missing for 6 days, was kidnapped a week ago today. Well, Officer Derek Sharbody, manager of the St. James Police Youth Club, is our guest to share some tips and guidelines with us. In fact, this interview was booked before the tragic news came to us yesterday, because there are a number of issues we want to discuss, and we'll continue this dialogue after the top of the hour, because there are many different negative influences that young people are facing that are actually costing their lives as well. Officer Sharbody, very good of you to be with us this morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and I hope it's not too late to say happy new and all the best for 2021.
Well, I suppose it rings a little hollow right now, given the tragedy that would have unfolded yesterday, that many people were already fearing the worst. But we want to frame our discussion, Officer Sharbody, because you are involved with young people, many of them troubled lives, difficult upbringings, trying to get them on the straight path with all the challenges that are faced. What can you tell us about this environment, this attitude that unfortunately, it's not about branding an entire group of young people, but the evidence is there, Officer Sharbody, that too many young men seem to see women as targets, and they have these predatory instincts towards women. Based on your experience and your encountering of young people generally, what is your perspective?
Well, it would be remiss of me to convey my condolences to Mr. Barrett and his family for the very heinous, vicious, barbaric attack on his taking his life daughter. It can only be described as evil, ungodly. It is really a sad day in our country that we are here again. You made the point over and over that we're here again, trying to find our way in terms of how to address this type of violence. And certainly, you have a lot of quotes, and I want to start with a particular quote. And the quote starts off by saying that any society that cannot provide the safety for its women, children, the elderly, especially able, cannot be considered a lawful society, but a lawless one. And we must start with that context, that safety is paramount, and if it is, we are to address the question of safety. It must be proactive. It must be working with our youth. And it is a sad day that as we speak 2021, we still have not get it right in terms of understanding the importance of molding and transforming and working very early with young people, and not just intervention, but more active. And violence has been glamorized, but Mohammed, it has been packaged nicely. Women has been sold as property, and that comes about because of the global village, comes about because of the importation of foreign culture, the filth and the trash that comes from all these different social media. And there's no re-educating or no serious plan in terms of telling or giving young people a platform where we can sit down and say, hey, do you think this is right? Do you think that your thinking is right? It is unfortunately that we wait until crimes like this happen and there's a big uproar an outpouring of hate, and at the end of the day, very little is done in terms of working with our young men and working with our women as well. You know, at my center, we have a platform for young men that sit and discuss, and you will be amazed to hear how young men are thinking today in 2021 about the opposite sex. And that is because of there was no father figure, that because there was no male role model, and because the home has failed. And the home, which is the first pillar, would have all these fundamental values set up to ensure that our young men are trained to be gentlemen, the way they treat a sister, it would come across as somebody with class. The girls would have been looking on in qualities that they will find, in a young man. But unfortunately, our home is targeted, it's under pressure, and by extension, we have this ripple effect, this domino effect that is taking place, that as we speak, we are still an uphill battle trying to win our young men over as gentlemen and teaching our young girls that when a man hugs you, that he hugs you because he can, and it should never be that when he raises his hand is because he wants a lash, but he's there to protect and care for you. And I think we need to redefine family life. And we are procrastinating, we are marking time too much, and we are losing life in the interim. What is wrong? What is it taking so long for women to get a fighting chance for pepper spray? You do a survey now and ask all women who would like to have a fighting chance. Okay, we know that men are monsters. We know that men out there wake up in the morning and all they have is to do the devil's bidding, evil work. What do we have in place for women to get a fighting chance? What is the discussion? Why are we still having a discussion on pepper spray? And we talk about first world countries and we talk about best practice. And I went all over, I've been trained and I've seen pepper spray modified and simplified in very unique ways so that women in this country can get a fighting chance, knowing that we have a crime problem, knowing that some men are monsters, knowing that men have no respect for women, and that our transport system is not the best, that by 9 o'clock, sometimes there's absolutely no transport. I have a police bus, Brother Mohammed, and after 11, I will be dropping children home. 20 past 11, minutes to 12, you'll see women coming out of the Diamondville Factory Road, finishing night duty, stranded out on the main road at the mercy of the elements. I will have to stop and ask them if they need assistance, but they'll be a little bit, reluctant. And then somebody will say, look, officer, and I will drop. And you'll hear stories from these women who are leaving after 11, no transport provided for them to make sure that after they have made a day's work, that they reach home safe. And you ask them why they can't get their own private car. This officer, don't even start there because I can pay private drivers to drop me home. So we have to look in a holistic approach to our transport problem. What services being provided to protect our women? What are we doing? We're sending our women out there. They're working. They're going out, trying to make a dollar meet, and they're out there with the elements.
Officer Shabadi, I haven't really intervened with what you're saying, because everything that you're saying rings so very true, one, and two, you are out there on the front line, and therefore you can tell a tale that many of us would not have experienced, because people like myself who lead privileged lives, who have private cars, who are able to ensure that my children and so on are not exposed to these realities, we often live in a bubble ourselves. And therefore the question has to be asked, because there is no easy solution. There is no quick fix. And I take your point about the pepper spray and so on as an immediate response to an immediate challenge. But there's no quick fix to this, Officer Shabadi. Do you get any sense from our society, and I'm not just talking about our politicians, our legislators, I'm not just talking about that, but do you get the sense from our society that we are changing our ways, that we are waking up to the reality that women in Trinidad and Tobago are perceived by many to be targets, to be there, to be consumed in some vicious, savage, or maybe sexual way. Are you seeing any change from that what appears to be, and as you would have said, women out there feeling that they're basically in the firing line? Is that changing at all?
No, and the point is well taken that there's very little effort being made on the ground to continue to promote the work of the transforming our youth. Most of the programs, Brother Mohammed, is starved. It needs to be funded, and it needs to be expanded, and it needs to be respected. When that happens, then you would see that on your program and many of the leading media houses, that there are good work being done, and by extension, the capturing young men who will show respect. Okay, let me give you a simple example. Do we have any PSA? Do we have any type of public service announcement that after news or during, the summer period, that young people can sit down, a young man can watch, and this is how he must conduct himself. This is how he must treat women. Are there any bombardment of information that will seek to let our young men know that they are priceless? That it is absolutely imperative that they empower themselves through the way they speak, the way they stand, way they conduct themselves. All these things, it has to be up. You see, but the moment, my point is this: we can differ on so many things. It's okay. But this particular matter, I am not seeing any difference of opinion. I'm seeing that there must be a collective effort. There must be something short-term, medium-term, and long-term in order to address this horrific, evil slaughter on our women. And women will rise up. Women will rise up. You're going to hear very soon women telling police officers, I'm sorry, this is the only thing I can do to defend myself. You ain't talking about muriatic acid, the walking with all the kind of liquid. You hear talk about women will eventually defend themselves. And is that what we want? Or do we want to ensure that laws are passed, women are protected, they feel safe, and that all the different stakeholders, the pillars, truly get an appreciation and underscore that we need to work with our young men, and we also need to work with our home and by extension, fathers. It is absolutely imperative. I tip my cap when my brother changed his organization from single fathers, the Fathers Association. I think all fathers should be involved in domestic violence, and I salute him for that. All men should take stock and take note of what we are doing to our women, how we are treating them. Is this the way to treat them?
And we're going to take a break in a short while, and we'll continue our discussion. But I often wonder, Officer Shabadi, when we have these how do you get young people, young men? And again, for all those who are saying, but what about the boys who getting killed and so on? We're talking about the predatory behavior, the attack on women. How do you get young men to understand that behavior, or that antisocial behavior, that attitude, that vicious attitude towards women? Do you have that same attitude towards your sisters, towards your mother, towards your tanty, towards your grandmother? Can you transpose whatever love or feelings you have for the women folk who are directly in your household to the wider women folk of our society? Is that an impossibility? We're talking solutions here. What sort of reaction do you get, in other words, when you tell young people who speak disrespectfully about women, and tell them, would you say the same thing about your sister or your mother or your granny or whatever? What do they tell you when you put that to them?
Shall I respond?
Yes, yes, please.
Well, you get a mix. Sir, I didn't know, the way you put it across, I now understand. I was taught differently. So the few role models in my community, I don't see much men treating women with class. I thought he's a mama man, because there are no male role models in the community, and the few they have, you could understand what kind of role models they are. So that you have to give young men a platform. You have to give them a forum where they can reconsider a certain type of lifestyle. And the mixed views that you get is a reflection of the home. It's also a reflection of community, and by extension, how many men have adopted a young man in the community and has imparted, and by extension, has have impacted on his life. So we need to get men like you and all men of influence to speak to our boys. They come and say, hey, this is not how you speak to your sister, because home is the training ground, and whatever home produce, society will have. So if boys don't treat their mother and their sister properly, you could very well have an appreciation for what we are nurturing and preparing for the world of work and for home, and by extension in your house. Mothers need to know that boys that are raised are not raised for home alone, but they are raised to be future husband and father to the children.
Officer Shabali,
That
just pause for a moment, because we have to take a break right now, and we'll continue our dialogue in a few minutes. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us this morning, as it's turned out, primarily talking about this issue about the predatory instincts, unfortunately, very tragically, of so many of our young men. But we'll broaden it when we come back to talk about the challenges that young men face on social media, or young people face on social media as well, with all of the different issues related to that, and do they make the situation many times worse as far as the challenges that are faced. And as we go to the break, here are a couple sunset images over Port of Spain submitted by Andrew Spring of Belmont. Thank you very much for these very serene and very calming images. Andrew, really appreciate it. As we head towards the top of the hour, it's now 6:57. We'll be back after this with Officer Shabadi.
Now I could drink champagne when I thirsty. Now I could see all the thing I never see. They say this how I eat man so. Mommy, I have to go to school.
A minute after 7 o'clock in Trinidad and Tobago, and in a moment we'll continue our discussion with Officer Derek Shabadi. But sometimes during the break, I go through the papers looking at things, and I bounce up this on page 6 of the Express. And I know Officer Shabadi is waiting patiently to continue our dialogue. But just listen to this from first paragraph from Ricky Ramdas in the Sean Luke murder situation of more than 15 years ago. In fact, almost 15 years ago. Almost 15 years after DNA samples in the Sean Luke murder investigation were sent to the Forensic Science Center for testing, the prosecutors have not yet received the results of those tests. Just pause on that for a moment, and you could understand why this system that we live in is not designed to create a lawful, law-abiding society. Almost 15 years after DNA samples in the Sean Luke murder investigation were sent to the Forensic Science Center for testing, the prosecutors have not yet received the results of those tests. Let that marinate for a little while. But let's go back to Officer Shabadi. Thank you very much as we continue our discussion, Officer. And we want to just branch off a little bit in our discussion, and I know this was part of our original intention in our discussion when we booked this interview, to talk about the challenges that young people face on social media. We had that tragedy last week of the 9-year-old who appeared to be influenced by a TikTok challenge. And there's always this challenge or this thing that with some dark intent that seems to attract young people very easily. And because, again, you are involved, you are the main man behind the St. James Police Youth Club. Tell us about your appreciation here and your understanding of how powerful these influences are on social media. You can give your perspective, please. Your mic is turned off. Your mic is turned off. You need to just probably just sort that out. Right, I think you're ready. You can continue now. Go ahead.
Right, hear you?
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear. Go ahead.
You cannot declare war on crime when you have visible evidence that the criminal elements or the media that you're targeting are more equipped. And when you look at the law-abiding citizens, you will appreciate the fact that they are not armed. So therefore, it is an imbalance, and it is not wise, prudent, to give the impression that we declare war. Now, as it pertains to social media, I wrote 2 pieces, and I warned parents that there's a new parent in the home. I chronicle for the parents what this new parent look like, that it has your children full attention, that your children is showing suicidal thoughts. I express concern that this new parent can only emerge because the parent has allowed this new parent to take over. And this is what is the problem. The problem is not TikTok. The problem is not Facebook. These media platforms are here to stay, and as we speak, it's getting more power and more influential. The problem is when parents remove themselves from the rightful role and do not police their children and do not give young people a platform, because that is what social media is doing. Now, you could tell me in your widest dreams, just listening to the term blackout game, you know something is definitely wrong. Just the term blackout alone, you don't have to even specify what it entails. But when the incident occurred, the 2 incidents occur, I would call the young people in my club because they are the ones that keep me informed. And you know what the young people are now telling me? They say, sir, there's the program called Dare. And young people dare each other. But dare you. They said the second one is likes. Young people will do anything for likes because they're not being liked at home. They're not being seen in a positive light. So they'll do anything for likes. And then the third one is popularity. Consequence will come afterwards. Once I'm popular, that is all that matter. So that when you look at the fundamentals of why young people are addicted to the social media is in the absence of something at home. So it goes back again to quality parenting, where a child must learn to put down the phone, where there's a party list set up in terms of when you should use your phone, when you should not use your phone, what platform you should go on, what site you should go on, who is policing that, who is checking the phone, who is making sure that, okay, I don't, that area there, it is just a whole case of the children are now in charge, they're in the driver's seat, and parents, only until they start to show some, unfortunately, qualities of suicidal thoughts and children love. There's a new word now. They take my phone, I'll kill myself. You saw the unfortunate situation where the young man popped well chopped his mother. Then you had one where the young man was told to finish his homework. Suicidal, so that there is a new spirit that now takes care of the home and is now instructive, if I put a word, to they're now nurturing our children. And again, we have to be mindful that social media and all these different we can play blame game and point fingers and say it's their fault and that fault. But check the homes that are not parenting their children. You will find our young people are absorbed and unfortunately and now become what you call a puppet to the social media. because the human element is no longer there. There's nobody to hug them. There's nobody to say, how was your day? There's nobody to ask them, how was your schooling? What did Miss tell you today? People do not speak to each other anymore, only via WhatsApp. Mother will send a WhatsApp chat upstairs, come downstairs for your food. While we're eating at the dinner table, the children are on their phone. They're not told to take off their phone. We are having quality time. This is time for us. So that there is now this new parent that is now giving advice, giving instructions, making sure that the children's time is now given up. And unfortunately, you connected that. We have all these unfortunate happenings within the Women Body Committee.
Absolutely. And Officer Shabadi, just on that point, because we just have a few minutes left, but how do you deal with that? Because let's go back to your earlier reference to young women coming out from Diamond Vale at after 11 in the night, after work. Maybe some of them are single mothers. Maybe some of them have many young children at the home. And because of the nature of their jobs, they can't be there. That there's not that husband, there's not that father figure and so on. What do? Because there's nobody to see the children, there's nobody there to provide that mentoring and that guidance. You reach home nearly 12 o'clock in the night, you're tired, you just want to go to sleep. The children have issues, maybe they need some guidance, but you're exhausted. What do? So let's try and paint that reality. And I understand the very important perspective that you just given us. How do you rescue a situation like that?
Well, this is why when you engage parents, especially single parent mothers, you have to offer options. You have to look at the extended family. You have to look at a good neighbor. You have to look at somebody that within the community that can partner with you, because that is what it was all about before. It was all about the community raising our children. Unfortunately, dysfunctional communities are now raising our children, and that's why we have this after effect. So you have to give parents and allow them, the opportunity to think outside the box, so to speak. I know in the case of me, children would come down to the police club, and only until the parents and them reach home, an arrangement is made for them to go home. Girls would leave the club center and walk out by the corner and tell me, sir, I'm leaving. I say, no. I will let the young men escort them to the corner, take the vehicle number, a description, and, I will even train the girls to work in codes. Call me every half an hour. If you say, I have to call my uncle, I know it is a code that you send in. It is all about survival tools. It is all about equipping our children. It is very unfortunate. Let me give you a quick example. A young lady came to our club and she said, sir, I would love to get a recommendation. And I tried to pass with early in the morning. The mother told her, make sure when you're traveling, don't travel with these young men who doing PH. That was a customary. The young lady went on the stand and she flagged down an elderly gentleman. The elderly gentleman stopped, took her, she went to the back of the seat, and the same elderly gentleman took up a young boy further down. The elderly gentleman turned and said, I'm making an off-route. I'm giving her 5 minutes. While off-route, the car stopped, the little boy jumped in the back, put a knife to the young lady's throat, tell her to bend down, don't say nothing because I'll kill you, and took the young lady all the way up to Valsin in an abandoned place. And the rest is history. They left, and she got out of it that she fought her way out. And she ran all the way down to Crab Junction. She finally fainted, and somebody picked her up. When you finally hear it, she said in a report, she said that the elderly gentleman was telling the young boy, you see what I tell you? It has worked with a champ all the time. Once an old man driving, they just trust you. So these fellas and them are thinking, they are studying, and we must also make them a study. We must also equip our young people with that level of intelligence. So this girl unfortunately had an experience, but she can now come back and warn other girls about, listen, it's better that you travel with somebody you know. It is much more safer. So to going back to your question, it is imperative that we equip our single parent mothers. We adopt a home. What is wrong with saying that there's a single parent mother, she has two children, I will throw my eye on these children and them? We must become our brother's keeper. Those are some of the fundamentals that are missing, Brother Mohammed. And this is why the elements and the enemy can now come in and continue to allow our community to be fragmented. Throwing your eye on my son and stepping out for 2 minutes. Could you watch my daughter for me, please? Listen, I'm working late tonight, and the two little trying to get stay over by you. That is how community used to blossom and grow, and we used to develop each other. And I pray for my child. I pray for the child neighbor next door too. I have a bread, I cut the bread in half. I will give the neighbor. All those are the fundamentals that are missing. Nothing superficial, nothing big. Those basic human elements that crafted communities long times are no longer there. And we have to go back to the drawing table, to the blueprint of our community was raised once upon a time, and save our children. It's not my own, but it's our children. And we need to revisit the way we speak. Sometimes, once I have a gate, two dogs in front of my yard, and I have a electrical gate, all is well. But that is not the case. We must know that a community that is successful in fighting crime is a community that is collective. Where's the neighborhood watch groups? Where's the light signs that say that in this community we love our women, we protect our women, and we care for our children? Where's those signs that speaks to unity, camaraderie? The commissioner have to go and act. All those are projects that the community can do to empower them. And we need to reach out to these communities and to the leaders, true genuine leaders, to really empower community so we can safeguard our young men and ensure that our women are safe.
Officer Derek Shabadi, let me commend you for your continued commitment to this cause. But just that chilling story that you told about the young lady, all we could say is that thank God she's alive. That's all we could say from a situation like that. But I want to thank you for taking the time to give us your perspective. And again, I'll be honest with you. I'm really tired of these cycles that we go through. Let's hope that I don't have to talk to you in a month's time or 2 weeks' time in a similar sort of situation. But I really want to commend you on your continued commitment to the young people and therefore the wider society of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much for taking the time.
And thank you very much, Brother, for the opportunity. And I convey my condolences again. And I just want to repeat that all isn't lost. We need all hands on deck to continue the good fight.
Indeed. Thank you very much once again as we come around towards 7:16 in Trinidad and Tobago. And as we go to the break, here's an image submitted by Steve Rattan of Marabella. And that's the flower I have in my yard. Or at least I used to have in my yard. The one that has the kind of plastic kind of look that is, I'm told, poisonous. So I never tested it out to find out. And now an image of the purple petria flower to take us to the break. Very, very nice. Very nice lavender colors in the bright sunshine. We'll be back right after this.